There's a pattern in history that has destroyed monetary systems again and again. In 16th century Spain, rivers of silver poured in after 1545. Prices tripled by 1600, and by 1640 the empire was bankrupt. In revolutionary France, paper money exploded from 0 to 45 billion livres between 1790 and 1796, and by the end, bread cost a day's wages by the hour. In the 20th century, Germany printed until a loaf of bread hit 200 billion marks in November 1923, and the middle class vanished in months. Different centuries, different governments, same ending. And right now in 2025, the global Fiat system is following the exact same pattern. The numbers are larger, the speed is faster, the stakes are absolute. And here's what should terrify you. Every time this experiment reaches its final phase, it ends suddenly, not with warnings. Before we go through this pattern, you need to understand what fiat money actually means. Not in textbooks, in practice. Fiat currency is money backed by confidence, enforced by law, and sustained by trust in institutions that promise restraint. At first, it feels liberating. Governments are no longer constrained by gold, silver, or physical limits. Spending becomes flexible, crises become manageable, growth seems endless. But then the incentives change. Once money can be created without immediate consequence, every political problem starts looking like a monetary one. Wars, recessions, social unrest, all solved with issuance. At first, it appears controlled. Inflation is called temporary, debt is called manageable, printing is called stimulus. But this isn't just about economics, it's about power. When a state controls the unit of account, it controls behavior, savings, labor, and time itself. And when that control is abused, the collapse doesn't arrive gently. It arrives when confidence breaks. Not gradually, suddenly. That's not theory, that's documented history. Every fiat system follows the same arc. Discipline at the beginning, expansion in the middle, panic at the end. The collapse never happens because money is printed. It happens because trust runs out. And when trust goes, velocity spikes, prices detach, and the system consumes itself. Let me show you how it happened before. 3 times, in 3 different eras, and why the same forces are at work again. Let's start with Spain. In 1492, it was a regional power on the edge of Europe. By 1550, it was the richest empire the world had ever seen. The turning point came in 1545, when Spanish conquistadors discovered silver at Potosi, in modern-day Bolivia. Within a decade, Spain controlled over 80% of the world's silver supply. By 1560, more than 200 tons of silver were arriving in Seville every year. That single fact changed everything. At first, the silver looked like a miracle. King Charles V, and later his son, King Philip II, suddenly had unlimited funding. Armies expanded. Bureaucracies multiplied. Wars became permanent. Spain fought in Italy, the Netherlands, France, the Ottoman frontier, and the Atlantic simultaneously. By 1575, Spain was fielding over 150,000 troops across Europe. None of this was funded by domestic production. It was funded by metal pulled from the ground thousands of miles away. Here's the critical detail. Spain didn't invest the silver, it spent it, almost immediately. By 1550, Spain imported most of its food, textiles, weapons, and tools. Domestic industry collapsed because foreign goods were cheaper when paid for with silver. By 1600, Castile produced almost nothing of value. The economy hollowed out. Silver became the economy, and then prices began to rise rapidly. Between 1500 and 1600, prices in Spain increased by roughly 300%. Wages didn't keep up. Fixed incomes were destroyed. This was Europe's first major inflationary episode, later called the Price Revolution. At first, officials blamed merchants, then speculators, then foreigners. But the cause was simple: too much money chasing the same goods. This is where the pattern truly begins. The crown spent future silver before it arrived. In 1557, Philip II declared Spain's first sovereign default. Then again in 1575. Then again in 1596. Each time, creditors were promised repayment from future shipments. Each time, more silver was pledged before it was mined. Debt piled on top of debt. By 1580, Spain's annual revenues were roughly 10 million ducats. Its annual expenses were closer to 12 million. The gap was filled with borrowing. Genoese bankers financed the empire. Interest payments alone consumed over 40% of state revenue by the end of the century. Spain wasn't wealthy, it was leveraged, but here's where it gets darker. The silver flow wasn't stable. Pirates, shipwrecks, war. In 1591, a fleet carrying 11 million pesos was delayed for months. The treasury panicked, payments stopped, confidence cracked. Every delay caused a fiscal crisis because the entire system depended on constant inflows. Meanwhile, the military situation worsened. The Dutch revolt dragged on year after year. The Spanish Armada was destroyed in 1588, costing an estimated 10 million ducats. That loss alone equaled a full year of royal revenue. To compensate, more silver was spent. more debt issued, more promises made. By 1600, the consequences were unavoidable. Spain had abundant money but no productive base. Inflation had crushed the peasantry. Taxes soared. In Castile, tax burdens tripled between 1550 and 1600. Farmers abandoned land. Population declined. Urban poverty exploded. The empire looked powerful from the outside, but internally it was decaying. And then the silver slowed. Production at Potosi peaked around 1600 and declined steadily after. Ore quality fell. Costs rose. By 1640, silver output was less than half its peak. The entire fiscal structure depended on a flow that no longer existed. The collapse wasn't dramatic. It was administrative. Salaries went unpaid. Armies mutinied. In 1640, Portugal broke away. Catalonia revolted. Spain lost control of the Netherlands permanently in 1648. By 1650, Spain was no longer a great power. Its population had fallen by nearly 20%. Its debt was unpayable. Its currency was distrusted. This is the key lesson. Spain didn't collapse because it ran out of silver. It collapsed because silver replaced discipline. Easy money destroyed incentives. Printing wasn't required. The effect was the same: too much monetary expansion, too little production, too much faith in an endless flow. That's what this phenomenon looks like in practice. Abundance masking fragility, power masking decay, and a system that appears stable right up until it isn't. Let's jump forward almost 2 centuries. Revolutionary France. In 1789, France was the wealthiest nation in Europe by population and land. It had fertile soil, skilled labor, and the largest economy on the continent, but it also had debt, enormous debt. By 1788, the French monarchy owed roughly 4 billion livres, the equivalent of an entire year of national output. War spending, especially support for the American Revolution, had drained the treasury. Tax revenues couldn't keep up. Confidence was already fragile when the old regime collapsed. At first, the solution seemed elegant. In December 1789, the revolutionary government seized church lands valued at roughly 3 billion livres. Against this collateral, they issued paper notes called assignats, initially 400 million livres. The promise was restraint. The notes would be temporary, carefully limited, backed by real assets. Sound familiar? Just like Spain, the first phase felt like relief. The economy stabilized, trade resumed, confidence returned. By 1791, assignats were widely accepted. Inflation was modest. Officials declared success. But here's the thing people don't understand. Once a government discovers it can fund itself by issuing money instead of raising taxes, restraint becomes politically impossible. By 1792, France was at war with Austria and Prussia. Armies expanded rapidly. By 1793, France had over 700,000 men under arms, the largest military force in Europe. War demanded money. Taxes were unpopular. Printing was easy. Assignat issuance jumped from 400 million to over 3 billion livres. Prices began rising sharply. Just like Spain, production didn't keep pace. Farmers hoarded grain, merchants demanded higher prices. By 1793, bread prices in Paris had doubled. The government responded not by stopping issuance, but by controlling prices. The law of the maximum fixed prices and wages by decree. The result was predictable. Goods vanished from shelves. Black markets exploded. Confidence eroded further. This is where the same trap that caught Spain was closing. To maintain spending, France printed faster. By 1794, assignats in circulation reached 8 billion livres. By 1795, 20 billion. By early 1796, over 45 billion. Each increase destroyed more trust. Each response required even more issuance to compensate. The political consequences were severe. Savings were wiped out. Fixed incomes collapsed. The middle class, which had supported the revolution, was ruined. Workers were paid daily because weekly wages lost value too fast. By 1795, inflation was running at over 300% annually. In some months, prices doubled. Sound familiar? Just like Spain's silver delays caused panic, any slowdown in assignat printing caused crisis. The system was trapped. Stop printing, and the government collapses. Keep printing, and the currency collapses. There was no exit. By 1796, assignats were effectively worthless. A loaf of bread cost hundreds of livres. The government attempted a reset with the new currency, the mandate territorial, backed again by land. It failed in months. Trust was gone. The French economy reverted to barter in many regions. The social consequences were explosive. Food riots spread. Urban centers destabilized. The Directory government lost legitimacy almost immediately. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte seized power. One of his first acts was to kill the paper currency system entirely. By 1803, France returned to metallic money under the franc germinal. Stability returned almost overnight. The timeline is the critical detail. From first issuance to total collapse took less than 7 years. Different continent, different political system, same pattern, asset-backed promises, temporary issuance, war pressure, Political incentives, overprinting, inflation, controls, collapse. History was repeating itself. France believed it was exceptional, that revolutionary ideals made old rules obsolete, that paper could replace discipline. They were wrong. The pattern played out again. Now let's look at the most recent example, one you probably remember, Weimar Germany. In 1918, Germany emerged from World War I defeated but intact as an industrial nation. Its factories still stood. Its workforce was skilled. Its technology was advanced. What it lacked was fiscal stability. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919, imposed reparations totaling 132 billion gold marks. That figure wasn't abstract. It equaled roughly 3 times Germany's pre-war GDP. The obligation was payable in gold or foreign currency. Germany didn't have either. At first, policymakers believed they could manage it. Taxes were politically toxic. Cutting spending risked unrest. Printing money felt temporary. In 1919, the money supply was increased modestly. Inflation rose but seemed manageable. A loaf of bread went from 1 mark in 1918 to 2 marks in 1919. Uncomfortable but survivable. But here's what should really concern you. The pace accelerated fast. By 1921, Germany was printing to buy foreign currency to pay reparations. That meant selling marks on the foreign exchange market, collapsing the exchange rate. In January 1921, $1 bought 64 marks. Just like France, every problem became a monetary one. Strikes, print to pay workers, budget deficits, print to cover them, reparations due, print to buy dollars. By mid-1922, prices were doubling every few months. By late 1922, every few weeks. Confidence was evaporating. Then came the Ruhr crisis. In January 1923, France and Belgium occupied Germany's industrial heartland after a missed reparation payment. The German government called for passive resistance. Workers were told to strike. The state promised to pay them anyway. With what? Printed money. In just 9 months, the money supply exploded. The numbers are staggering. In January 1923, a loaf of bread cost 250 marks. By July, 3,265. By September, 1.5 million. By November 1923, 200 billion marks. Wages were paid twice a day. Workers ran to shops before prices changed again. Savings built over decades were wiped out in weeks. This collapse happened faster than anyone expected. Spain's decline took a century. France's took 7 years. Germany's took less than 4, and the final phase took months. In November 1923, the currency simply ceased to function. Barter returned. Foreign currencies circulated openly. The middle class was annihilated. The resolution came only when the system was killed. In November 1923, the Rentenmark was introduced, strictly limited, backed by land and industrial assets, with issuance capped. 1 Rentenmark replaced 1 trillion paper marks. Stability returned almost immediately, but the damage was done. Social trust was destroyed. Extremism flourished. A decade later, the political consequences would engulf the world. 3 times, 3 nations, 3 collapses. Spain took generations, France took years, Germany took months. The pattern is accelerating. And here's what should terrify you. The modern global Fiat system, led by the United States, is following the exact same pattern. Stage by stage, not approximately, precisely. Stage 1 is monetary liberation. In August 1971, President Richard Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became pure fiat. At first it worked. Growth surged. Debt expanded without immediate consequence. In 1971, U.S. federal debt was $398 billion. By 2000, it was $5.6 trillion. By 2008, $10 trillion. No panic. Confidence held. Check. Stage 2 is normalization of expansion. After the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve created $4.5 trillion through quantitative easing. Interest rates were pushed to near zero for 7 years. Asset prices soared, stocks tripled, housing doubled. This wasn't framed as emergency anymore. It became policy. Printing was renamed liquidity. Check. Stage 3 is fiscal dominance. Governments stopped pretending monetary policy is temporary. During COVID in 2020, the United States created over $6 trillion in 12 months, more than all previous QE combined. Direct checks, business bailouts, state funding. In 2021 alone, the deficit hit $2.8 trillion. Inflation followed. Consumer prices rose 9.1% by June 2022, the highest since 1981. Officials called it transitory. Check. Stage 4 is loss of purchasing power. From 2020 to 2024, the dollar lost roughly 20% of its purchasing power. Food prices rose over 25%. Rent rose over 30% in major cities. Real wages fell for 3 consecutive years. Savings eroded silently, just like France, just like Germany. Check. Stage 5 is debt saturation. By January 2025, U.S. federal debt exceeded $36 trillion. Interest payments alone crossed $1 trillion annually, more than defense spending. That's not future risk. That's current reality. Every percentage point increase in rates adds hundreds of billions in cost. The system cannot tolerate normalization. Check. Stage 6 is confidence strain. Foreign buyers are slowing. In 2014, foreign entities held 34% of U.S. debt. By 2024, that figure fell below 24%. China reduced holdings from $1.3 trillion in 2013 to under $800 billion. Meanwhile, BRICS nations expanded trade settlement outside the dollar. Not ideology, risk management. Check. We're not approaching the pattern. We're deep inside it. Stage 7 is policy trap. Raise rates and trigger a debt crisis. Cut spending and trigger recession. Print more and accelerate inflation. Just like every case before, there's no painless exit. That's the trap Spain fell into. That's the trap France couldn't escape. That's the trap Germany printed through. Check. So where are we? We are late stage expansion. The next stage historically is volatility, currency competition, capital controls, financial repression. Maybe it takes 5 years, maybe 2, maybe less. The acceleration since 2020 suggests less. This affects you directly. Your savings lose value. Your wages lag prices. Your taxes rise to fund interest. When confidence breaks, it won't be announced. It will show up as shortages, controls, and sudden rule changes. That's how it always happens. 3 times this happened. Spain in the 16th century, France at the end of the 18th, Germany in the early 20th. Each believed they were exceptional. Each believed their situation was unique. Each believed the rules of money no longer applied to them, and every single time, they were wrong. The pattern says abundance without discipline always ends the same way. Spain told itself silver made it invincible. France told itself revolutionary ideals justified paper promises. Germany told itself printing was temporary, just a bridge to recovery. In every case, leaders delayed the pain, extended the experiment, and crossed the point of no return without realizing it. We're telling ourselves the same lies right now. That debt doesn't matter because it's denominated in our own currency, that inflation can be managed indefinitely, that confidence is permanent, that this time is different. But the pattern doesn't care about belief. It doesn't care about ideology. It doesn't care about power. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot expand money supply faster than production forever. You cannot fund structural deficits with issuance without consequences. You cannot accumulate debt faster than income and expect stability. And once you reach the late stages, you cannot reverse it gently. Every empire learns the same lesson. Every empire ignores it until the end. The difference today is speed. Spain took a century. France took years. Germany took months. Since 2020, every stage has accelerated. Trillions created in weeks. Policy shifts in days. Markets repricing in hours. Maybe we still find a way out. Maybe the system reforms itself. Maybe confidence holds longer than history suggests. Maybe this time really is different. But the pattern says otherwise. The math says otherwise. And history says we're about to learn the lesson the hard way. If this helped you understand where we actually are in the sequence, stay with this channel. Because when the next stages arrive, confusion will be everywhere. Narratives will clash, explanations will multiply, and understanding the pattern will be the only way to see clearly through the noise. The answers aren't hiding in the future. They're written in the past, in the ruins of empires that believed they were immune. And once you know where to look, you can't unsee it.